Two roses diverged on a yellow slide. That slide is supposed to be yellow. It was on my thing, and the humor is lost without it. To flourish or not to flourish? That is the question. Now, you probably are worried that I'm going to keep up with this kind of thing, and I promise I won't. But I thought I'd start with a poor mixed metaphor and a little hint towards some poetry, and I've exhausted myself on that. There won't be any more of it. But I want to use this image to kick off a discussion about flourishing. Because right here we can see, just at the perceptual level, what it is and what it isn't. To flourish means to flower, to blossom, to bloom, to live to the fullest potential of whatever it is that you are. If you're a rose, to flourish looks like this, and to not flourish looks like that. Which of these roses would you rather be? It's kind of a silly question. But what if there were three? What we can see here is that flourishing is still a thing, that thing, and there are degrees of not flourishing. And if I ask the question again, which of these roses would you rather be, we again know exactly which one we would prefer to be. What I want to do today is talk about what it means to flourish and what the elements of flourishing are and what we have to know and understand and do in order to flourish. Now, we are much more complex than a rose. So we're going to have to talk about, just as a rose has a nature and it flourishes when it's meeting its needs given its nature. So a rose needs sunlight, it needs nutrients from the soil, it needs water, right, so that it can photosynthesize, so that it can do the things that a rose does in order to flourish. We need to do something very similar, but far more complex. And living a beautiful life, flourishing as a human being, requires that we understand the elements involved in that. That we understand what it means to be a human being. What is the nature of a human being? And then there's what is the nature of you? You're a particular human being. You're not like everyone else here. You're different in a certain respect. And then there's trying to pull together all the knowledge we have about our nature as a human being and our personal nature and the things we need to do in life in order to live and making it all work together so that we can do this thing called flourishing, so that we can be that, my thing isn't working there, that rose, but as a person. Now we're going to get a little technical. So, flourishing is one thing. It's living to the fullest potential, to your fullest potential. It's living the best life possible to you, all things considered. That's what it means to flourish. You're up on that high ground there. There are degrees of not flourishing, and the degrees are real and they matter, right? We would rather be the middle rose than the one on your left, but we would rather be the tall, fully healthy, fully flourishing rose than the one in the middle. So flourishing is one thing, and the degrees of flourishing are not flourishing, but the degrees matter. The law of excluded middle, given to us by Aristotle, holds that a thing is either A or non-A at a given time and in a given respect. So you're either flourishing or you're not flourishing in life. Now, is it likely that you're going to be up on this level at all times in your life? No. And that would be an unrealistic goal to set for yourself, to be literally, so that if you weren't up there all the time, you felt like you were failing in life. Life is complex. There are ups and downs. Things go south for us. You can have a relationship where you're in love with someone and things change and he or she leaves and you're bummed out. And if that happens, you are not at that moment feeling like everything is going great. Or you have a wonderful job that you love and you lose it. You get laid off. That is not going to be a moment in your life where you're feeling like everything is going great. But what we can do is we can live, if we design our life properly, we can live up near the top of that and mostly on the level of what we would regard as fully blooming, fully flourishing, fully thriving. And that's what we want to do. This is what life should be. But so few people talk about things in this way. Few people get philosophic about what it means to flourish and what the elements are. So I want to get philosophic today, and we're going to zero in first on human nature, and then on your nature, and then, before we get there, theme. So this is my theme for today. Flourishing is living a life you love in harmony with your nature. And I want to look at all the elements of this today. It's going to kind of go backward. We're going to start with your nature. What is your nature? What is your nature as a human being? What is your nature as an individual? Then we're going to look at what it means to live a life you love in harmony with that. And we're going to kind of zero in on what it means to flourish. I think you'll get a feel for that as we go. Again, just as a rose has a nature, so do we. So this is the framework for our discussion today. First, we're going to talk about human nature, then personal nature, then the major areas of life, which will be things like your career, romance, friendships, hobbies, and the like. And we're going to see how each of these elements, as we zero in on flourishing, is essential to understand in the way we think about life and in planning and acting in life. So the goal is to sort of get a big contextual picture of what it means to do this thing called flourishing. Now, we're going to talk about a lot of things today in a sense that it might, as you'll see in the next slide, feel like it's going to give you too many units to work with. But bear with me, because I don't think it will be too many units. Reason being, I'm not going to tell you a lot of things you don't know today. I'm going to show you how many of the things that you do know fit together in a framework to think about what flourishing is. So as we zero in, you'll see, oh yeah, I understand that to some extent. And for those of you who really understand, I'm speaking largely, by the way, from the perspective of Ayn Rand's philosophy, objectivism. Not everything I'm going to say today is a principle of objectivism, but that's the framework within which I think about ideas. And much of what you're going to see here today is based on Rand's philosophy, but not all of it. If you know her philosophy, some of this is just going to be review for you. If you don't know her philosophy, I'm going to introduce you to a few ideas and their relationships in a way that I think will be clear and helpful. And that's the purpose. The purpose is to sort of get a big picture overview of what the elements are of our nature and how they relate to flourishing. So we'll start with human nature. Again, just as a rose has a nature, so do you, so do I. And as human beings, there's a universal nature to us. We're the weird ones on this planet, right? We're the ones that have this mind that enables us to do crazy things like, build buildings and factories and send people into space. And we're weird that way. And this is what makes our nature so damn complicated, is this thing that we have. And what it is it's reason. Aristotle said that man is the rational animal. The essence of man is that he has a rational faculty. Now, having a rational faculty does not mean everybody always uses reason. If that were the case, that would be great. It's not. It means we have the capacity to use reason, and that reason is our means of knowledge. Reason is our means of understanding the world so that we can figure out what to do so that we can live beautiful lives. So it's a tool. We have a mind, we have a body. We're an integrated being of mind and body. And then within that mind, within that mental thing that we have, within our consciousness, we have two mental faculties, our rational faculty and our emotional faculty. And both of these are really important to our lives. In fact, they're equally important to our lives. And sometimes when people get into either Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism or any philosophy that focuses on reason, they feel like, oh, emotions are being pushed aside here. And I want to stress that that is not the case with Ayn Rand's philosophy in particular. It's exactly the opposite. Emotions are being treated in the philosophy that we're going to be looking at today and the ideas that we're going to be talking about today as exactly what they are, our psychological means of experiencing our values. That's what emotions are. They're automatic responses to the values that we have based on our prior thinking and judgments that we've made. So if you love a particular team, a particular ball team, and they win a big game, right? You're really elated. That's great. Your team won. You feel great. And if you bet a lot of money on that game, then you're even happier, right? Then it's really, really joyful. If you bet a lot of money on the game and they lose, you're feeling rotten that day, right? That's the nature of emotions. They are our psychological means, our mental means of experiencing our values. And they are crucially, crucially important. If we didn't have an emotional faculty, or if we repressed our emotions completely and just said, well, those don't matter, life would not be worth living. The whole point in living is to have experiences where you feel great about being alive, where you love your life. That's what life is supposed to be all about. So emotions are crucially important, that one of the two mental faculties in our head. But emotions are not our means of knowledge. They don't tell us what's true. They just give us an idea of our psychological disposition at any given moment in relation to the values that we have adopted in our lives. If you want a job and you get the job, you feel great. If you have a great job and you get fired, you feel rotten. You can multiply examples, but that's what emotions are. They're super important, but they're not our means of knowledge. Our means of knowledge is that other mental faculty, reason. Reason is the faculty that operates on the basis of perceptual observation. We look out at the world, we see what things are, figure out how they relate to each other, and then we learn how we can use those things to serve our purposes as human beings, right? You can plant corn and grow cornfields, and then trade the corn and get money so you can buy a car, et cetera, et cetera. That's what reason enables us to do. It enables us to understand the world and know what's true. It enables us to gain knowledge so that we can use that knowledge so that we can live beautiful lives and love our lives. The relationship of reason and emotion should not be one of acrimony or discord. It should be one of harmony. That's what the faculties are for. They're to harmonize with each other by one of them telling us, hey, here's what's true, here's how the world works, and the other one saying, thanks so much, now let's get that thing done so we can feel great about living and enjoying our lives. That's the relationship of these two faculties. And if you see them that way, then you don't have to have, doesn't mean that there won't be occasional discord or conflicts between the two, but when there is, you know what's going on. You need to think through it, check your premises, figure out why you're feeling rotten or why there's some conflict here, and figure out what the facts are, and you can work through it. So reason and emotion are just crucially important faculties. The way to think of them is you should be 100% pro-reason and 100% pro-emotion at the same time. all the time. Why? Because reason is always your means of knowledge, and emotions are always your means of experiencing your values and enjoying life. That's how you do it. And when you use reason, when you choose to use reason this way, reason does not ignore your emotions. That would be irrational. Emotions are a certain kind of fact. When you feel attracted to a guy or a girl, when you feel like you want a particular job, when you feel any kind of an emotion, that's a fact about you at that time. And when reason is thinking about how to live your life, reason should take into account all of the relevant facts, and that's one of them, right? So the relationship between these two things is one of integration. It's one of unity. It's one of harmony, if you think about it this way. So what is free will? Where does that come in here? Well, whereas emotions are automatic, they just well up in us based on whatever our values are and whatever the experiences that we're having. Your team wins the game. You feel elated. Why? Because you value the team. Boom, there's the emotion. You can't control whether that emotion comes up. But what you can control is whether or not you take reason as the primary in this relationship. Free will is simply the choice to exert your rational faculty or not, to think or not to think. And a lot of people get confused about free will because they think, oh, does that mean you can make any choice you want at any given time, or you can know what the next word is that comes up from your subconscious? No, reason doesn't give you omnipotence. Reason enables you to think or not to think, and free will is just a corollary of that. It comes with reason. If you have a rational faculty, it means you can use it when you choose to, or you can choose to not use it. So if you understand free will that way, there's no dichotomy between free will and the law of causality. You know, everything that happens has a cause, so what caused you to choose to think? No, what caused you to choose to think is you. You're a particular kind of entity. You have a rational faculty, and what comes with that rational faculty is the ability to use it or not to use it when you choose. So we can talk more about free will if you want in the Q&A, but I think it's a good time to, when you're seeing the distinction between reason and emotion and what the two faculties are, it's really easy then, I think, to see what free will is, because it's just the choice to go by reason as the ruling faculty here and have reason take into account your emotions, because they're real and they matter. But reason is the only one of those two faculties that can do that. Your emotional faculty cannot project the future. It cannot tell you what's true. It cannot take the full context into account, including your reasoning ideas. Reason is the faculty that can do that, not emotion. And free will is simply the choice to say, yes, that's true, I'm going by reason. So again, there's no dichotomy here. Now I'm going to move through the other items on here pretty quickly because they flow directly out of everything we've already said. We need to think as human beings. It's our means of understanding the world so that we can figure out what things are, do the things we want to do, and love our lives. That's what thinking is about. We need to introspect. That means look in, ask questions about, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way, right? Reason pays attention to emotions. And the way in which reason does that is by looking inward and asking questions about what's going on in my emotional faculty. Why am I feeling this way? What premises, what values do I have that are giving rise to these emotions? And if you understand reason and emotion this way, again, you see that they're a team for a harmonious life, is what they really are. We need purposes in life. We need long-range things that we want to do in our lives, a career we want to build, a relationship we want to build, a symphony we want to write, a vacation we want to take. What enables us to project into the future and do those kinds of things is precisely our rational faculty. And our rational faculty can tell us, if you do that thing, if you write that symphony, if you take that vacation, you're going to love it. I know because I've seen this before, says reason to emotion. Emotion might feel like, well, I don't want to do the work right now. I just want to go dancing tonight because dancing is fun, right? Emotions can't project. Only reason can do that. But reason can do it in conjunction with and in service of your long-term emotional states. So that's what these things do together. And purposes are just these big, hairy goals that we put before us as human beings that we're able to do and that make our lives awesome. Purposes are the things that give our lives meaning, things we strive for, things we want to do, get done, and enjoy. We'll talk more about those as we go. And finally, the need of self-esteem. One of the core elements of happiness and flourishing is feeling really good about yourself, feeling like you're rocking it in this world. Things are going great. I'm loving it. I'm up on that platform. I'm living in that flourishing zone, right? We want that, and part of being there is loving yourself and realizing that you're capable of dealing with reality. How do you achieve that? How do you achieve self-esteem, that kind of self-confidence and self-love? By using reason to go after your purposes, to get things done, to see that you can do these things in reality and that you can love your life, and then voila, you love yourself and you feel competent because you just showed yourself that you can do these things. So self-esteem isn't telling yourself, I'm great. It's showing yourself that you can live. And the way you show yourself you can live is by using your mental faculties correctly, recognizing what they are and what their differences are. So now I want to talk about personal nature. We're pushing human nature off to the side, so it's off to the side, but it's not out of mind, because I don't want to lose sight of the rings here. All of this matters. We'll talk about personal nature here. Now, we all have all the things I just talked about in the human nature section. But now, each of us has something completely different. You are completely different from the person sitting next to you. In terms of temperament and personality traits, you have nothing that's identical. You're completely unique. Some people are born with very high energy levels in their temperament, or very high sensitivity to sound or noises, right? There's all sorts of things that come with us. This is not innate knowledge, but they are innate dispositions, and they're real. And you have some, and I have some. You might be an introvert, you might be an extrovert, right? Some of these personality traits, and I'm not sure how the psychologists divvy them up, temperament versus personality trait, but they're in this sphere, and they're things that come with you, in effect. If you have kids, you know about this, because you have 3 kids, and they're all completely different. And so we have these things, and they matter. And knowing what yours are and respecting those in your life is important. If you are an introvert, as I am, you need a lot of alone time. And you have to respect that about yourself and carve alone time into your life, right? If you're an extrovert, you need to be around people a lot. That's really good for you, right? So take your temperament and your personality traits seriously. We all have physical attributes that make a difference. You might not love your physical attributes. I'm short. I'd love to be a little bit taller, but I'm not. So what? It's me. It's who I am. You just deal with what you have in these cases. I have a reasonably good speaking voice. If I sing, you guys would cringe and run out of the room, right? So we all have, and some of these things you can improve. I could probably improve my singing voice if I really worked at it, but I wouldn't want to put the teacher through that either. So we all have certain physical attributes that come with us. They're real. And some of them are, disabilities. I have a minor disability. I'm slightly dyslexic. My good friend John Wass is in the room somewhere. He has some serious disabilities that he has managed in his life, beautifully. The hand you're dealt there is the hand you're dealt, and you just deal with it. Some people are super strong naturally or super flexible naturally. Others not so much, right? You have experiences and memories that are completely unique to you, and they are really important. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who have a career that they love, and you ask them, were you doing anything related to this when you were a kid? And they're like, oh yeah, there were all sorts of things that were, that sort of foreshadowed what I would go into. But you're not going to know that unless you look back and pay attention to your memories and experiences. Now, hopefully, most of your memories and experiences are good. We all probably have some bad ones too. But they're part of you. This is who you are. Knowing yourself is really important. Spend time thinking about these things and getting to know who you are. Your knowledge and skills that you've built, obviously very important. I'm not going to dwell on these, but they're key to the things you're capable of doing now. Your standards and values. Now, you may have developed, particularly moral standards and values, you may have developed those based on false ideas that are all out there in the culture. There are ideas about morality being all about sacrificing for others. And that, in my view, is a really rotten idea. There's no basis for it at all. The idea that sacrifice is good is completely without any basis in reality. There's no answer to the question, well, why should sacrifice be good? So, but the point is, you have standards and values, including moral standards and values, and you can check them. You can check them using reason. If we go back to human nature, right? You can ask yourself, does this make sense? And this is where reason comes in and helps you to work through some of these things in your personal nature. But at any given time, whatever your standards and values are, they're there. And if they in some way conflict with your efforts to live a beautiful life, like if you feel morally like you should be sacrificing for others, but at the level of wanting to make your life great, like you should be doing things for yourself, you have a conflict there. And that conflict can really screw up your life because it makes you feel guilty when you're succeeding at living, and when you're succeeding at being, quote, moral, you're failing at living. You're screwing your life up, right? So take all of these things seriously. We have to know who we are. We have to pay attention to the person we are. And your personal nature is where you need to look for this. You have desires and interests and goals, obviously, and some of you have really big ones that are really solid in your head, and others have fuzzy ones that you're not quite sure what you want to do yet, but you know you want to be happy. And you know that there are ways to do that, or at least I hope you're starting to see that there's a science to figuring out how to do this, and these are the kinds of tools that we need for this. Checking my time here. All right. And then finally, you just have preferences. And arguably, you could say preferences are part of your desires, interests, and goals. But I wanted to break it out because there's something special here in your preferences that gets shoved aside a lot. And just take music. Like, you have musical preferences. I certainly do. Like, I have really, really strong music taste. And then you have preferences that whether they're innate or not, I don't really care. Take it either way. But your sexual preference, it is what it is. If you're straight, great. If you're gay, that's fine. If you're bisexual, that's fine. If you're not interested in sex, it's just not your thing, that's fine too. Whoever you are, you are. And when they are things like your sexual preference, something that's out of your control, it's not in your control. You shouldn't even it's not to be evaluated at all. It just is you, and that's fine. But thinking about your personal nature within the context of human nature, right? These are the universal traits that we all have. These are your personal traits that make you absolutely unique. All of these are super important as we zero in on how to live a life of flourishing. You have to know who you are as a human being in the broadest sense and who you are as an individual in the narrower sense. With that in mind, we'll move in another ring to the major areas of life. It just so happens, given the kind of animal we are, that there are certain things we have to do to live a beautiful life. And these are some of those things. We have to learn. We have to get an education. We're not born knowing how to live. We're not born knowing what's true. We're born blank slates in this sense. There's no innate knowledge. We come out literally ignorant, but with an amazing capacity called reason. So we have to learn what's going on. Then we have to choose a career. We have to choose the kind of work we're going to do to enable us to live, right? Food and money and the like don't just grow on trees. Well, some food grows on trees, but to pick it and to own it and to earn it, you have to work, right? So working is a part of human life. We have to make a decision at some point about what kind of work do I want to do. And then we have things like romance. We have various relationships. I'll start with romance. Romance is a super important aspect of our life. Everyone here probably, most of you, are interested in romance, or maybe you're already in a romantic relationship. And it's a really special aspect of life, right? It's the area in which you get certain kinds of intimate values and certain degrees and kinds of pleasure, namely sexual pleasure, that you don't get anywhere else. It's like one of the best things about life is romance and all the good stuff that comes with it. So this is a huge area of life that you need to take seriously, unless it doesn't matter to you, and there are a few areas here that do. Some of this is optional, but I'm just putting the framework out here to think through. As we go through these, bear in mind what the role of reason is versus the role of emotions in all of this. Reason helps us to understand what careers are available, where I might go to get an education. Reason helps us to understand what I might do, where I might find someone who's interested in the same things I am, someone who might make a good romantic partner for me. Reason is the controlling factor there. Using free will to let reason do that is the right way to use free will. And then the emotional reward for it, when you do it right, and you have that career you love, and you have that romantic relationship you love, there's that emotional reward. There's the harmony between these two faculties. And you can just think about this at every level as we go through this. Your friendships and community. This is a hugely important area of life. Pretty much for almost everyone, not necessarily for everyone. There are certain people who are total loners, and they're just like, I don't have friends, I don't want them. And if that's you, that's actually fine. There's nobody in the sky saying, "Thou shalt take these as your values." It's what works for you and helps you to live a beautiful life. So this is why you need to do the introspecting and the thinking about these things to figure out what's good for you. But most of you probably really do want good friendships. And some of you want big, robust communities of friends. Something like this conference. There's real value in coming together with other people. This is super important to us, to the spiritual aspects of life. By spiritual, I mean the mental, psychological, emotional aspects of our lives. So friendships and community are important. Physical health and fitness are important. If you want to live a beautiful life and you don't keep yourself in the kind of shape that enables you to live a beautiful life, you're just undermining the ability to do that thing. Now, that doesn't mean everybody has to be like Michael Phelps and that kind of fitness. I'm certainly not. But you want to keep yourself as fit as necessary and appropriate for the kinds of things that you want to do in your life. So again, you need to think broadly and sort of scientifically about what you want to do and how does this fit in. Recreation and hobbies. Life is not all work, right? We want to get out and play sometimes. What do you love to do? Do you love sailing? Do you love hiking? If you don't do the thinking on this and take seriously the fact that your free time is limited and every moment of it that's gone is gone forever, and you just wind up, surfing the internet or watching TV mindlessly, and there's nothing wrong with the internet, there's nothing wrong with TV. The question is, have you thought through the way that you're using your time? Are you thinking and trying to get up on that high level, that platform of flourishing, or are you settling for something down here? Why settle for something down there? Why not live? Why not flourish? And the way to do it is you got to take this stuff seriously. You have to really think through your values. I'm going to break down a little bit about how to do that in a few minutes. Right now, I'm just sort of priming the pump. We need these things. Mental health. If all of us wrestle with mental issues at some time or another, life is difficult. You're going to have some trouble. If you're having a lot of trouble, take advantage of the fact that there are people who are professionals who deal with that, who help people who are having trouble thinking through things. It doesn't mean you're crazy if you go see a therapist. It means you need somebody to talk to who's professional at helping you to think through things. And if you don't have mental health issues, it's still an important part of your life because you want to keep yourself mentally healthy if you are. So this is another area that's really worth thinking about. Finally, I'll just mention art consumption. A lot of people don't realize how broad the concept of art is. You think, well, art, isn't that just music or just like paintings and sculpture? And it's not just paintings and sculpture. I couldn't care less about paintings and sculptures for the most part. They just kind of bore me. I've seen a few that I like, and I'm like, okay. But music? How many of you guys listen to music on a regular basis, right? Yeah, that's a soul-fueling, wonderful aspect of life. And you want to know, what is your favorite music? Take your values seriously. What music do you love? Do you read novels? That's art. Do you watch movies or television series? That's art. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we continue, because I think art consumption is really important for your soul. Filling your soul, taking time to think about what kind of art matches your soul, and gives you spiritual fuel. It's a really important aspect of life. All right, we're going to shove this out to the side. Again, there's a lot going on here, and we're going to pull it all together here in a minute, but I want to go one last point before we do. So flourishing involves taking all of that into account and somehow managing it all into an integrated, non-contradictory, unified whole. This is a hell of a job. As Archie Bunker would say, geez, dear, eat it. You know, what a job you have now. How are you going to do this? That's so much to pull together. So this really does involve thought. If we don't do the thinking and the work, we can't have this thing called flourishing. It's work. It takes concerted effort. So how do we do it? The question, how can you live a life you love in harmony with your nature, is precisely the question. It's the same thing. It equals, how can you integrate all of these factors into a unified, non-contradictory whole? And Ayn Rand has just beautiful advice on this, and she only talks about it in a few places, but the power of her ideas on this is just remarkable. And I'm going to give you a taste of it here, and then we will I'll talk about ways that you can learn more about it. The answer is, to how we can pull all that together, is by hierarchizing your values and acting accordingly. Now, what the hell does that mean? It means this: organizing your values with respect to their relative importance. Some things are more important than other things. Your career is more important than going to the rave tonight, right? I mean, just on a just cursory level here, you can see, obviously, certain things are more important than other things. So you need to get your values organized with respect to their relative importance. And then you need to identify their relationships to each other. What's the relationship between my career and my romantic life and my hobbies and these other things? And we'll talk about how to do that. And then acting in accordance with this hierarchy of values and in accordance with your knowledge of their relationships. The relationships and the cross-wiring, if you will, between these things is really, really important. So we're going to look at my value hierarchy, because it's the only one I'm familiar with. Remember, we're all unique, so I know myself, and I can tell you a little bit about how my value hierarchy works. And with this, I think you'll be able to think even more clearly. You probably already know a lot about what I'm talking about here, but hopefully this will help you to think even more clearly about yours. Now, the 4 items on the top row here, these are my top values. And it is not the case that one of these is more top than the others. These 4 are the top. And they share that top space. And they can share that top space because they're categorically different things. They're not the same things. They're very, very different. But they have relationships that are really important. Now, there are ways you can do diagrams like this that are helpful, where you can take your career and put it into the center and realize this is my central purpose. This is the main mission of my life. And that's true and valuable, but I'm going to look at this hierarchically today instead of in terms of a central purpose with things emanating and related to it around it. So as I talk through these, I want to talk about not only the elements and what I get personally out of these elements, but also their relationships to each other. And I'm going to spare you all the lines that I would have to draw on here to show the relationships, because it would become spaghetti if I did that, and it wouldn't be any help to us. But you'll see as we go. So my career is super important to me. It's the way I spend most of my time. I love to think and learn and communicate ideas. This is what I do. And for each of these, I've just got a few elements that are in there. There's a lot more for each. But writing, speaking, teaching, and learning, constantly learning, that's my career. It's what I love to do. Fills me with joy. Reason helped me to figure this out. My emotional faculty gets all of this reward from having done that thing that way. So I love my career, and it puts food on the table, it puts money in the bank, and it enables me to do all of these other things. So career has a certain sort of fundamentality relative to the other values in your life because it's the thing that pays for everything else, in a sense. And it doesn't just pay for it financially. Your career is where you get a huge amount of your sense of purpose in life. You're achieving, you're setting big goals in your career and then achieving them. And then with that comes self-esteem. Look at how I'm handling this. This is awesome. Or, man, I got over that difficulty really well. And you show yourself you're capable of living. That makes you feel good. And so the reason, emotion, harmony is visible there. And it will be visible in all of these instances. My romantic relationship with my wife, Sarah, is the most important spiritual thing in my life, probably. It is where I mean, romantic love and the laughter and the humor that Sarah and I share and the moments we have together that are just indescribable are a core element of the beauty of my life. And for you, likely the same. And if you don't have a romantic relationship, work at it. Be rational about it. Find someone, develop something like this because it's beautiful. It just really is a huge, important aspect of life. Sarah and I have a daughter, Darcy. She's here. And we love her to the moon and back, as the book says that we read to her from the day she was born, right? And we have so much fun with her. And she and I talk philosophy all the time. We go on adventures together. We go rock climbing. We go skiing. And I'll pause here just to talk about the relationships of just these three things. So my career enables me to have these relationships with my wife and my daughter. My career is shared with Sarah because we actually work together, so there's a big integration there. The things I do in my career enable me to talk to my daughter Darcy about philosophy and do all sorts of things that I wouldn't be able to do if that wasn't my career. So there's a massive amount of integration going on right there. Moving on to health and fitness. I try to keep myself reasonably healthy. I'm not like a not like a Michael Phelps type fitness, but I want to be able to ski with Darcy and rock climb with Darcy, and I want to be able to ski with my friends. I'll get to that in a minute. These are the recreational things I want to do, and health enables me to do those things. So there's a relationship there. Health also enables me to do my work well because I've got lots of energy because I'm paying attention to my needs for fitness and all of that, right? So you see the relationship here, and we could just start drawing lines all over the place, but I won't. So the energy, the longevity, the quality of life. Take your health seriously. You need this stuff. Your health is relative to you. You don't need to be as healthy as every other person on the planet, but you should think about the health that makes sense for you. Friendships. I'm really an introvert, and I have only a handful of friends who I love, and we do things together, and they're really, really important to me. And I have discussions with them. They challenge me. We have adventures together. We get a lot of joy out of those relationships. And then some of my friends I work together with. Some of my friends are really close with Sarah also. Sarah also has friends with whom I'm not so close, and vice versa. So there's some integration going there. Recreation. My friends and I go skiing together. My friends and I go rock climbing together. Darcy rock climbs with us. Sarah sometimes comes skiing with us, and so forth. You see the integration going on. Hobbies. I love watching really good movies. I love listening to really good music. And these are super important to me in my life. Sarah and Darcy and I have the same sort of sense of humor. We love the same comedy. We love a lot of the same art. We watch Dai Zhang Gum and Mr. Sunshine and Boston Legal. There are several TV shows we like. There are certain books that we love. Darcy and Sarah more so. I don't read a lot because it's painful for me to read. I'm dyslexic, so I don't do that much. But the other art that we love the same music, much of the same music. And then there's music that we don't love together. But there's a lot of relationship and integration there. Hobbies, cooking, not only enjoying art, but comedy, cooking. We love to cook. We have friends over. We love to cook for our friends. There's a lot of integration there. Sarah and I make beautiful meals, and then we take pictures of them. We have catalogs of the pictures of the food that we make. It's part of our life. We love it. We take really good care of our home. Sarah has designed beautiful patios. When we have friends over, they get to come join us on the patios and enjoy those patios. So all of this comes together, and at the bottom here we have travel. It's not that important to me. It's important enough to have on this list. It's not one of the most important things in my life, but I love it. And when we do travel, we like to travel with friends, we like to travel with our daughter, we like to travel just the two of us. Sometimes I travel alone. But all of this fits together in my life in a non-contradictory, unified way. Why? Because I've taken the time to think through it. I've taken the time to take seriously the values that matter to me and what their relationships are to each other. You can do this. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of thought, and things change over time. A lot over time. You have a child, as we did, everything changes. I stopped rock climbing or doing any other activities, basically, for several years because all I wanted to do is play with my daughter and take her to the park in my free time. So things change, and you roll with those changes. Anyway, you get an idea here for how a value hierarchy can be created, what it looks like, and how these things work together. Your value hierarchy regarding the major areas of your life. What is it? Spend some time jotting it down. Think this out on paper or on a screen, whatever works for you. Play around with these ideas. Some areas, you might add areas here that I don't have. You might not have kids or even want kids, so they might just be off your list. You might be someone who doesn't care about romance, and it's off your list, right? But most of these things, certainly career and health relative to your situation and recreation and hobbies, these matter. And if you think through them and take them seriously, you live a very different life than if you don't. If you think through them and take them seriously, you get to live up on that high ground or near that high ground most of the time. That's a beautiful, beautiful place to live. Last thing I'll say here is that I'm going to share with you an ebook that gets into a great bit of detail about how to hierarchize your values. And one of the things that it will talk about in there is that there are two value hierarchies operative in your mind right now. There's the one you have de facto, just in reality, however you are spending your time in your career, romance, your other things, and whatever time you're apportioning to those things, that is your current value hierarchy. That's how you're acting in terms of your values now. But you can create on paper, right, the value hierarchy that you want if it's different from the one that you currently have. And then once you have that difference in view, you can realize the changes you need to make to get from this one to that one, right? And that's a really beautiful thing to see because then you can say, oh, what are the steps that I need to do to move to this other space? And again, the book that I'm going to share will help you with that. So I encourage you to download it and check it out. So in sum, flourishing is living a life you love in harmony with your nature. It requires taking your mind, your values, and your life seriously. You have a nature, you have a personal nature, there are areas of life that matter. Think it through. Zero in on what it looks like to flourish as you. Design that life. Design the life that you love. And then live it. Live that life. Why live a different life? Be that rose that stands tall and loves its life. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we have some time for questions. That is the ebook. This ebook, by the way, has another article in it. So it's got my article on purpose, value, hierarchies, and happiness. And it's got another article by my colleague and friend John Hersey that is really, really good. So I encourage you to download that and check it out. All right. Seamus.
Hello. Okay, so I'm a very ambitious life designer. You talked about your personal nature. My question is about personal nature and changing your personal nature. There's some things for you that you really love and you include them in your hierarchy, and other things that you don't care about at all. And then there's other things, to me at least, that are on kind of this edge where it seems like if I worked on it, I could acquire that taste, Or I can say, you know what, it's too much time, life's too short, I'm not going to worry about it at all. And this is a challenge for me because a lot of times it feels like I don't so much have the personal nature circle, I have a personal nature explosion. And I'm trying to figure out how much I can include in it because I want to pack as much enjoyment into life as possible, right? But I have to be selective and I have to essentialize. So, what's your advice on how to change your personal nature and how to know when to not to change your personal nature, when to say, you know what, this is just how I am?
Yeah, good question. There are aspects of your personal nature that you can change and aspects you can't. And so the first thing I would say is realize the difference. Speaking personally, right, I have a very high energy level. I'm an introvert. I cannot change either of those things. I don't want to change either of them, but I couldn't if I wanted to. I'm dyslexic. I can't change that. So it causes me some trouble because I read very slowly and it's fatiguing to read, right? So there are certain things I can't change, and I just instead have to figure out how to deal with those. And then, so partition those off and forget about them because there's nothing you can do about that. The things that you can change, for instance, you have a particular value hierarchy right now. You have particular values and standards, even moral values and standards. And the question is, do they make sense? And do they harmonize with the goal of trying to flourish, or do they undermine and disrupt that goal? If you're adhering to the traditional sort of Judeo-Christian ethics of sacrifice is great, give up things, and that's the way to go, you cannot integrate, that does not integrate with trying to live a flourishing life. So, that's the kind of thing I would say to challenge. As for dealing with the explosion of, like, you're a high valuer, I happen to know you personally, you're like my daughter and myself, and anyone who has a lot of values, it's very difficult to sort of rein them in and say, well, which one of these many, many things that I want to do am I going to zero in on? And look, it's not easy. You have to do the effort, you have to take the time, you have to exert the effort to put them down and say, well, maybe I'll try this thing this weekend and see what I think, and I'll try this other one next weekend, then I'll compare the two. Whichever one is better, I'll say I'll keep that one on the table. Maybe you can A/B test things, right, as you go. If you're trying to figure out a hobby. We actually did this with our daughter Darcy when she was growing up. When she was a kid, we wanted her to experience as many athletic things and artistic things like acting and skating and all these different things as we could, so she could decide which one she loves. And she duped us because we did this for years, trying to get her to love something, and she kind of liked certain things. And then she came home one day and said she had discovered something that she loved that we hadn't even heard of, aerial gymnastics, and that's what she was going to do, right? So we tried there to give her as many options so that she could basically A/B. We were trying to A/B test with her which things she might choose. And I never thought about it as A/B testing, but you can think about it that way now. And you might do that in your own life. Just see if that works.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Yes.
Hey, Craig. So you covered spiritual health and physical body health. Those are a couple things you covered, as both of them are important. There's a soul-body integration. There's not a dichotomy, and you need both. They're interdependent. And I noticed in your personal hierarchy, you had them at the same level in the hierarchy. I was going to ask you, isn't there, even though there's an integration between soul and body, spiritual health and physical body health, isn't there still a hierarchy there in that you want good physical body health in order to have spiritual health, so that spiritual health is, in some sense, ranked higher than physical body health?
The last thing you said is that spiritual health is ranked higher?
Yes.
Okay. There is a sense in which spiritual health is ranked higher, but there's a sense in which it's not. So, the sense in which is one of these terms that is always really important. If you notice, so in the objectivist ethics, Rand holds that there are three values that are supreme: reason, purpose, and self-esteem. Notice all of them are spiritual values. All of them. So people who say Rand is a materialist, she's the worst materialist in the world. She's doing it all wrong if she's a materialist, right? But what's going on there is she's realizing that these things, your rational faculty, your purposes in life, and your self-esteem, they're driving everything else, right? And so how do I decide about whether my physical health is even important? It's a mental thing to even make that decision. So your mental faculties, your spiritual values are actually driving things And so in that sense, they're really the lead. But if you let your physical health go to pot, over time, it even drags you down mentally. It really does. You can't do the things you want to do in life. You can't live the kind of life you want to live. So I wouldn't say that in the grand scheme of things, it's okay to just let that one go because it's less important or it's not the one leading the way. It's still really important, I think, to see yourself as an integrated being of body and mind and take care of both of them.
Thanks.
Sure thing.
Hello.
Hello, Darcy.
Hi. You said something in there that really stuck with me of they can share that top space about two of your values because they're categorically different things while you're creating a hierarchy. And I was wondering how you felt about can two things that are categorically similar share a top spot? I was very much growing up having two best friends at all times or having multiple friends. And I'm like, I don't want to pick a favorite. And now faced with like two different careers that I really value both of. Is it possible, both time-wise or just with the nature of hierarchy and choosing your values, to have two categorically similar things share a top spot?
Good question. I think it is in certain cases and not in others. So with friendships, I think it is. I think you could have two best friends who really, you get different values from each to some extent, but they're both really, really important to you. And there's no onus on you to say, well, no, I must, there's some guy in the sky that says you must make one of these your best friend over the other, right? It's all up to you. So if they really are equal, they really are equal. And you can just say that's the way it is in my life, right? And if you even had, let's say you've got two careers that are vying for your attention, so to speak, it may be that they really are at a given point equal, and you have some work to do because you can't put equal time into both of them, but they may be equal now, and that is the case. And then you've got to think seriously about it, otherwise you wind up with there's Burundi's mule, the mule that stands between two bales of hay, and he's hungry, but he's right in the middle, and he can't figure out which one to go to, so he just stays there and dies, right? You got to make a choice, and sometimes you simply need to flip a coin to move. And if that's the case, that's what you got to do.
Thank you.
I think we can take one more question, and that will be it for today.
Hi, Craig. Your value hierarchy itself was something, I believe, of a perfect person, perfect human being. No wonder why you are so successful in life.
I'm sorry, I actually was unable to
Sorry, your value
accent, and I'm bad with
your
accent.
value hierarchy is pretty perfect. It seems like, that's one of the reasons why you are so successful in life.
Oh,
Right,
thank
yeah.
you. Yeah, I thank Ayn Rand for teaching me this.
Of course, yeah. So my question is, would you say that someone who is unable to prioritize their value hierarchy or is making mistakes when they are prioritizing the hierarchy and is making choices with no rational results, would you say that we can consider them having a mental breakdown or requiring mental support? I'm asking because there are certain
Would
values.
I say that they are what? I missed that part.
Like they're having a mental breakdown
Oh, okay.
or requiring mental support. I'm asking because I believe there are certain values which are so necessary for human beings. For example, I cannot live without a career, right? But if I'm not prioritizing my career in any of those places, I'm more like, going through a mental situation is what I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
So would you say that?
Yeah, so if I understand your question, I'm going to answer it in a way that I understand because we're so out of time here. What happens if you don't have a value hierarchy? You literally can't make decisions in life because you don't know, like, should I go to the ball game tonight or should I work on the report that's due tomorrow? Well, if you don't know which one of these is more important in the grand scheme of things, you literally do not have a way to make a decision. Ayn Rand makes this point in her book, Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology, when she's talking about value hierarchies, and she makes the point that if you don't have some kind of a value hierarchy, you simply can't make value calculations. And then on the other hand, if you do have a value hierarchy and you take actions that treat a greater value as less important than a value that's actually less important than that greater value, what you're doing is you're committing a sacrifice. You're giving up something of more importance to your life for the sake of something less important. That is wrong. That is bad for your life. That's what wrong means according to the philosophy I subscribe to. And it's bad for your life because it's undermining your value hierarchy. It's inverting your values. That's what a sacrifice is. It's treating It's abusing or misallocating your time and your energy and your bandwidth based on a misread of your value hierarchy. So the advice is A, create a value hierarchy, and then B, stick with it unless it needs to be adjusted, in which case adjust it. But you want to keep a solid understanding of where you are in life at any given time so that you can say, these are the things that are important to me, and I don't want to commit sacrifices, I want to achieve values. That's the point.
Right.
So I would think of it that way, and maybe that will help.
All right. Thanks, Craig. Yeah.
You're very welcome. Thank you all.